Let me die, she prayed. God's answer. Hundreds of killer bees. Evelyn Drake was born extraordinary. People said it often, sometimes with awe, sometimes with jealousy, sometimes with that quiet, resentful tone people use when talking about someone they suspect might really be touched by God. She wasn't just smart, though she was brilliant beyond measure. She wasn't just pretty, though her beauty was the kind that stopped people mid-sentence. She was magnetic, composed, eyes like stormlight, a voice like a hymn. From childhood, people stared. By 6, she was tutoring older kids in math. By 10, she could speak 3 languages. She rarely spoke unless she had something worth saying. And when she did, people listened. Her parents joked she was born with an ancient soul. Her teachers used words like once in a generation. By 16, she had graduated college. At 19, she held a doctorate in theoretical physics. Her work was elegant, precise, obsessed with hidden order, with the mathematics of entropy, the folding of dimensions, the symmetry behind chaos. She didn't care for the spotlight. She never tried to be known. And yet, in a quiet corner of the scientific world, her name carried weight. Her research earned her early tenure. Her work attracted government attention. She made good money, lived well, and never had to ask for anything twice. And yet, she remained grounded, or at least private. People who met her walked away stunned, sometimes shaken, unsure if they'd spoken to a person or something stranger. Then she met Daniel. He wasn't a physicist. He was a professor of comparative mythology, messy, romantic, the kind of man who played old records while cooking and cried at novels he'd read before. He was the only person who didn't treat Evelyn like she was something sacred. He made her laugh. She made him quiet. They married within a year. The wedding was small, beautiful. Their house was filled with books, music, shared glances across crowded rooms. She took a couple years away from research to raise their children. A boy and a girl, strong-willed and soft-hearted, full of life and wildness. They lived in a home with glass walls, a garden, and quiet corners for thinking. Evelyn returned to work in her early 30s, quietly, casually, and her career soared. Her work was respected, envied, funded. She never sought the public eye, but she was paid well, cited often, and doors opened for her wherever she went. She was beautiful, brilliant, respected, loved. Her life was whole. People said, God gave Evelyn everything. And maybe he did, because not long after she turned 40, he began to take it all back. It started with small things. She dropped a glass, then another. She stumbled on flat surfaces. Her handwriting degraded. Her speech slowed. She began forgetting words mid-sentence, then full thoughts. And still, she tried to explain it away. Stress, fatigue, getting older. But she knew her body too well. She felt the misfires, the slippage, the decay. Tests confirmed what her instincts already feared. A degenerative neurological condition. Rapid, terminal, no cure, no treatment, no mercy. Evelyn, ever rational, went to war. She pulled every string, called in every favor, hunted obscure trials and fringe therapies. She burned through money and time and hope with clinical precision. But the disease didn't care. Her right leg failed first, then her left. She began to speak less, not just because it hurt, but because she hated how it made her sound. Weak, broken. Daniel tried, at first. He adjusted, smiled for the kids, pretended. But over time, he grew quiet, cold, like she was already gone, and he was living with a ghost. Then one day, Without warning, he left. He packed quietly, didn't cry. "I can't watch you disappear," he said. "I need to breathe." And just like that, he was gone. That night, Evelyn, alone in her bed, her legs numb, her hands trembling, prayed. For the first time in her life, not for herself, for the children. "God," she whispered, "don't let this ruin them. Don't let me ruin them, please. Let me live long enough to shield them. Let them remember the mother who held them, not this. Please, please." The sky stayed silent. Her strength faded. Her coordination vanished. She began using a motorized wheelchair, barely operable with the last trembling motions of her right hand. Her speech turned slurred, her handwriting illegible. She fought to stay human. But dignity is hard to preserve when someone else is wiping your body for you. At first, the children visited often. Their voices filled the house with light. She'd smile, no matter how tired she was. But grief has layers, and abandonment is often quiet. They called less, then stopped calling altogether, too busy, too far, too afraid. And Evelyn, beautiful, brilliant, beloved Evelyn, understood. That was the worst part. She sold the house, divided the money, signed legal directives, found a cabin high in the mountains where no one would have to watch her finish unraveling. She hired a caregiver named Jonah, about the same age as Evelyn, quiet, kind, someone who didn't flinch at silence or at her trembling voice. "This is where I'll die," she told him the day she arrived. He nodded. "Then we'll make it peaceful." Summer came slow and golden. Evelyn wheeled herself to the back deck every morning. Her hands still had enough control to guide the chair. Her mind, though slow, was still hers. She liked the wind, the trees, the whisper of birds who didn't care who she'd once been. One late August afternoon, she rolled outside alone. The sun was low, the sky wide and blue. A bee landed on her wrist. It moved slowly, then stung her. She didn't flinch, just watched the pain bloom, then fade. "Too bad it won't kill me," she muttered. And she prayed, one final time, not for love, not for strength. She had prayed before for her children, for their memories to be untouched. But now she prayed only for silence. "God, if you're there, if you ever were, let me die today. I'm done. I'm empty. I'm ready. Please, just end it." And the air changed. She felt it before she heard it. A hum, deep and rising. She looked up. The sky was moving, darkening, with wings. Hundreds of bees, maybe more. A living storm descending, not in chaos, with purpose. They came for her. Evelyn didn't scream, didn't blink. She closed her eyes, tilted her face to the wind. "So, you were listening," she whispered. Not when she begged to live, but now, when she asked to die. Jonah found her lying in the grass. At first, he thought she'd fallen from the chair. The motorized wheels had stopped inches from a cluster of stones at the edge of the deck, tilted at a strange angle. But Evelyn wasn't sprawled awkwardly like someone who'd slipped. She was still, too still. Her body was curled, legs twisted unnaturally beneath her, her arms limp at her sides. Her skin was covered in welts, angry, red, swelling fast. The first thing Jonah noticed was her face, nearly unrecognizable beneath a map of stings. "Evelyn." He dropped to his knees beside her. "Evelyn, can you hear me?" Her eyes twitched, barely. She didn't speak. Her lips were dry, cracked. One of them bled where she'd bitten through it. Jonah's heart slammed against his ribs as he reached for her pulse. It was there, but shallow, faint. Her breath came in short, uneven bursts, rattling in her throat like a dying motor. Then he saw them. Bee carcasses scattered in the grass. Dozens, maybe more. He looked up. The sky was empty now. No swarm, just quiet. The stillness of after. He tried to lift her, but her body shuddered in pain, and she let out a sound so raw and broken he froze. She turned her head a fraction of an inch. "Don't," she rasped. "Don't take me to the hospital." "Evelyn." "No." Her voice, barely a whisper, carried more finality than a scream. "Let me die." Jonah sat beside her. For a moment, he couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight of her words fell on him like a shroud. He brought blankets, water, medicine, everything he could think of. He cleaned the stings, applied salves, tried to cool her skin. She barely reacted. She didn't ask questions. She didn't fight. She had made her decision. And Jonah obeyed. For 2 days, he stayed by her side. He barely left the cabin. He fed her teaspoons of water, wiped sweat from her forehead, held her hand when she shivered. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply lay there, watching the end come closer with each passing hour. At night, when she slept, or when he hoped she was sleeping, Jonah wept. He didn't pray for a miracle. Not yet. But he prayed for something. A sign. A reason. Anything to make sense of the slow dying of someone who had once seemed invincible. By the 3rd day, Evelyn's eyes had lost their focus. Her breath was thinner than paper. Jonah sat beside her, unmoving, pale, jaw clenched. And then he spoke. "I can't let you die." Her eyes flickered. At first, she didn't respond, but slowly her lips parted. Her voice was dry as ash. "What did you say?" "I said I can't let you die. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry." She stared at him, blinking slowly, as if trying to make sense of the words. Then her gaze sharpened, just barely. "You don't get to decide that," she whispered. "It's not your place. You have no right." Jonah leaned closer. He looked older, worn, a man unraveling. I know what this means to you. I know what you've lost. I've seen it. I've felt it. But I can't just sit here and watch you vanish. Not when..." He broke off, voice catching. She waited. Then quietly he said, "You don't remember me, do you?" Her expression didn't change. "We went to the same high school," he continued. "You were a senior. I was a junior. You never saw me. But I saw you. Everyone did. You weren't just smart. You were light. I thought, this girl will never break. I never forgot you." Her brows furrowed. Not in recognition, but in grief. "I've been praying too," Jonah said. "Asking God to take me. My time, my health, my life. I would give it to you, Evelyn. Gladly." A tear welled in her eye and slipped down her swollen cheek. "No," she whispered. Don't do that to yourself. I'm not afraid. You should be. I'd trade places with you in a second." "Then you're a fool," she rasped. "I know." Silence settled between them, heavy, devastating. Then Evelyn reached for his hand, her fingers barely able to move. Her skin was hot, tight with inflammation. He held her delicately, as if her bones might break apart. "Jonah," she said, voice trembling. "God doesn't answer those kinds of prayers. He didn't answer mine. Not when I begged him to let me stay for my children. He didn't listen. Her eyes filled with something too big for tears. I'm tired, not just of pain. I'm tired of being remembered like this. Tired of being pitied. Tired of waking up and realizing I'm still here. Jonah pressed his forehead to her hand. I love you. You don't know it, but I have always loved you, Evelyn, he said. She closed her eyes. I'm sorry. And the silence that followed said everything they couldn't. Jonah Hartman had once been a brilliant doctor, not famous, not the kind who gave TED Talks or landed on magazine covers. But in the hospital corridors, his name was spoken with quiet respect. He had steady hands, a sharp mind, and something rarer, an unwillingness to give up on anyone. He believed healing wasn't just science. It was presence, refusing to leave someone behind in their worst hour. That heart, the same one people admired, was what cost him everything. One night, in a high-stakes trauma case, Jonah made a call, a controversialis aegui. The patient was a well-connected senator, bloated with wealth and influence, carted into the ER after collapsing during a closed-door fundraiser. He was already circling the drain, organ failure, crashing vitals, full system collapse imminent. Jonah didn't wait for consensus. He didn't have time. He pushed an aggressive cocktail of drugs, a combination still under review, cutting edge, borderline experimental. But it worked. The man stabilized. He woke up. He spoke. Jonah had bought him time, but not for long. 2 days later, the senator died in his private hospital suite, not from the drugs, not from anything Jonah had done, but from a massive pulmonary embolism, a blood clot, a preventable complication, a mistake made by the man's own private medical team, who'd failed to follow up on basic anticoagulant protocol. But the press didn't care. Neither did his family. They needed a story, a villain. And Jonah's decision, the audacity of it, the timing, was the perfect match. He acted alone. He administered an unauthorized protocol. He played God. The hospital board turned their backs on him. Lawsuits followed, then hearings, then public disgrace. Experimental drug cocktail kills beloved senator, read the headline. Not doctor buys patient 2 extra days. Not private medical negligence causes fatal embolism. Just Jonah. Alone. He lost his license, then his job, then his name. When the noise finally quieted and the smoke cleared, Jonah found himself in a 1-bedroom apartment above a liquor store, eating from cans and avoiding mirrors. His wife stayed for 6 months. Then she was gone too. You're not the man I married. She was right. He wasn't. He drifted. Hospital to hospice, ER tech to orderly to night shift custodian. No one wanted a disgraced doctor. And Jonah didn't fight anymore. He kept his head down. He prayed less. Then not at all, until he saw the ad. A woman needed end-of-life care. No procedures, no hospitals, just quiet companionship in a cabin far from everything. He didn't know why it caught him. He applied anyway. He didn't expect it to be her, Evelyn Drake. She didn't remember him, of course, but he remembered everything. High school, the girl no one could touch, her brilliance, her beauty, the way she floated through the halls like she belonged to another world. He used to write poems about her, in secret, folded in notebooks no one ever read. He never spoke to her. He wouldn't have known what to say. Now she was dying before his eyes, and he was the one meant to guide her through it. Evelyn didn't talk much, didn't smile. Her beauty was still there, buried under illness, yes, but present in every sharp angle of her face, every glance that still cut like ice. But her mind, her spirit, was eroding. She had one request: let me die. Jonah respected it. At first, he fed her, listened to her silence, sat with her in the wind when she felt strong enough to face it. She didn't want stories, didn't want comfort, just the dignity of being left alone. But Jonah couldn't watch without hurting. He started to pray again. Not for himself, for her, not for love, not even forgiveness, just a trade. Take me, he whispered into the night. Take my health, my breath, my years. Let her walk again. Let her think clearly. Let her live. Take me. He prayed harder than he ever had in his life. And then one morning, the bees came. He found her in the grass, stung nearly to death. Eyes swollen shut, lips bleeding, barely breathing. The swarm had left, but what it took remained. And even then, especially then, she begged him not to save her. Jonah held her hand through it, cried when she slept, prayed harder, louder, desperate. And finally, when she woke on the third day, barely alive, and asked him again to let her go, he realized he wasn't just trying to save Evelyn's life. He was trying to save what was left of his own. Because if she died, he'd be alone with nothing left to believe in. Not love, not justice, not redemption, not God. Just silence. Jonah hadn't told her everything. Not at first. How could he? Evelyn had wanted death, asked for it, begged for silence, not answers. And he had honored that wish for a time. But deep down, Jonah had never believed she was supposed to die. Not yet. Not like that. In the weeks leading up to the swarm, he'd spent long hours reading, searching for something, anything that could offer hope. One night, in a corner of a forgotten medical forum, he found a paper, not peer-reviewed, not mainstream, but compelling. A theory buried in fringe research and anecdotal accounts. Bee venom therapy. There were whispers, unverified studies, linking bee venom to improvements in chronic, undiagnosed neurodegenerative conditions. One case, specifically, had focused on late-stage neurological Lyme disease misdiagnosed as ALS or MS. The symptoms mirrored Evelyn's. The decline, the resistance to treatment, the misdiagnoses. He began to wonder, could Evelyn have been misdiagnosed? Could her suffering have been the result of a hidden infection? Something doctors hadn't caught. It was a desperate theory, but Jonah had nothing else. So when the bees came, when they covered her body like a ritual and left her broken but alive, he didn't see cruelty. He saw possibility. He saw grace. He didn't tell her that, not right away. She was too weak, and he was too afraid to believe it himself. But then came the changes. Subtle. At first. By the end of the first week, she could move her left fingers, just slightly. She asked for water without help. Her eyes stayed open longer. The slurring in her speech lessened. Her voice grew stronger. Jonah barely slept, not out of worry, but awe. He watched her move her own arm across her lap on the 10th day and wept silently into his hands. By the second week, Evelyn was brushing her own hair. By the third, she walked 10 steps with a walker, cursing every one of them. By the fourth, she could stand unaided, only for a moment, but it was enough. That's when Jonah told her. They were sitting outside on the deck, warm light pooling in the trees, the last breaths of summer brushing against their skin. Evelyn looked like someone waking from a long, painful dream. Jonah held a mug of tea in both hands, not drinking it. "I need to tell you something," he said. She turned toward him. Her eyes were sharper now. The old Evelyn, her mind, her command, was coming back. "I wasn't entirely honest with you," he said. Evelyn didn't speak. She waited. "I suspected it wasn't what they told you, that it might have been Lyme, a rare strain, misdiagnosed. And I'd read, God, it was a fringe study, but I read it, that bee venom might help. I didn't want the bees to come, but when they did..." He paused, searching her face. "I thought maybe my prayer had been heard, and I didn't take you to the hospital because I hoped, if there was even the slightest chance..." He trailed off. Evelyn said nothing for a long time. The silence wasn't cold. It was reverent. Then softly, "You really thought that might save me?" "I didn't think," Jonah said. "I hoped. I begged." He smiled tiredly. "You didn't ask to live, I know, but I couldn't stop trying. I couldn't lose you, not like that. And when you saw the bees, I thought..." He looked away. "I thought it was him, finally answering. Maybe not with a cure, maybe just with a chance." Evelyn looked at her hands, hands that had once been twisted, frozen, dead. She flexed her fingers. It felt like resurrection. And yet, "I don't want you to suffer because of me," she said. Her voice was quiet, honest. "I don't want you to feel like you have to love me because you saved me, or because I survived." Jonah looked at her, steady and open. "I don't want you to owe me anything," he said. "I don't want gratitude. I don't want legacy. I don't want to be your story." He looked down, embarrassed. "I'm sorry I said I loved you." "No," she said. "Don't be." They sat in silence again. This time, something unspoken passed between them. Not tension, not obligation, recognition. And still, Evelyn was afraid of giving him her heart and watching him break under the weight of her recovery, her trauma, her long and painful climb back to something like life. But Jonah was steady, patient. Loving her didn't come from what she was. It came from who she was, even when she was dying, even when she was unrecognizable, even when she hated herself. He stayed. And that's how it began. Not like a lightning strike, but a thaw. Slow, careful, alive. Autumn rolled in slow and gold, and Evelyn Drake was still alive. She woke now without dread. She walked, clumsily, yes, but under her own power. Her mind was clear again, her speech strong. There were still scars, nerve pain, muscle memory that hadn't returned. But she was herself, and the cabin no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like home. Jonah had stayed beside her every day, every hour. Not hovering, not demanding, just there. Quiet, steady, kind. Evelyn found herself smiling again, laughing, sometimes even singing to herself when she didn't think he could hear. One morning, she stood on the porch with a hot mug of tea in her hand, the air crisp, the mountains blazing red and amber. She breathed it in, her chest rising high with strength that had once abandoned her. And then she heard tires on gravel. She turned. A car was pulling into the long, dirt driveway. At first, her stomach twisted, but when the doors opened, she dropped the mug. Her children. Her son stepped out first, taller than she remembered, sharper around the edges, wearing shame in his eyes like a bruise. Her daughter followed, hands trembling, eyes wet, face pale from guilt. They stood at the edge of the porch, silent. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her son spoke first, voice cracking. I'm sorry, Mom. Her daughter nodded quickly, tears already falling. We didn't mean to leave. We were scared and selfish, but not because we stopped loving you. We just couldn't face losing you while watching it happen. Evelyn stared at them, heart thrumming. And then she opened her arms. They rushed to her. No speeches, no explanations, just the closeness of forgiveness. Inside, Jonah stayed out of sight. He gave her space, and when she finally came back in, her face was streaked with tears, her hands shaking. He gave her a tissue and didn't ask. That night, they all ate together. Her children asked questions. She told them everything, about the bees, the sickness, the recovery, about Jonah. They didn't understand all of it, but they understood enough. 2 days later, a second car came. Daniel stepped out, a little older, a little thinner, but still him. He stood at the door, holding his hat in his hands. I heard what happened, he said, and I was wrong. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'd give anything just to sit across from you again, just to try, to earn it back. Evelyn didn't speak right away. She looked past him, through the window, to where Jonah sat at the table, quietly sketching something in a small notebook. He had no idea she was watching him. Then she looked back at her husband, and she shook her head gently. I forgive you, she said, but I've already been saved. Daniel nodded slowly. He didn't fight. He just whispered, I hope you're happy. She smiled. I am. And he left. That evening, Evelyn sat beside Jonah as the sun sank behind the ridge. Her hand rested in his without thinking. You could have told me about the research, she said. The bees, the theory. I was afraid, he said. If it didn't work, I didn't want to give you hope and take it away. She nodded. You didn't just save me, you saw me, even when I was at my worst. He didn't respond. He only reached into his coat pocket and pulled something out. A folded piece of paper, yellowed, soft at the edges. He handed it to her. She opened it. A poem. For a girl who walks like light moves through water, too brilliant to touch, too far to reach. But maybe, one day, I'll learn how to breathe where she lives. It was dated 26 years ago. Her eyes filled with tears. You kept this. I never meant to show it to you, Jonah said. It was enough just to write it. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then she leaned forward, slowly, carefully, and kissed him. Not with urgency, with peace, with a knowing that went deeper than survival. When they pulled apart, she smiled, soft and full of light. You learned to breathe, she whispered. I did, he said. Only took me half a lifetime. They sat in the silence that followed, the kind that wasn't empty anymore. And for the first time in years, Evelyn looked up at the sky, wide, open, infinite, and she thanked it, not for giving her everything, but for letting her return. Sometimes, when Evelyn sat alone on the porch in the early morning light, tea in hand, Jonah still asleep inside, she would think about how close she came to vanishing. Not just dying, disappearing, forgotten, diminished, a brilliance reduced to a footnote. She used to think God had taken everything from her, that he had raised her high just to watch her fall harder. But now, she wasn't so sure. Maybe losing everything had been the only way to see what truly mattered. Maybe what felt like punishment had been protection. Maybe the silence hadn't meant abandonment. Maybe it was God waiting for the right time to speak. And when he finally did, It wasn't with thunder or miracles. It was with a swarm of bees and the hands of a broken man who loved her more than she ever thought she deserved.